Scott Ritter, welcome back to the mother of all talk shows. I've got so many things I want to ask you, but let me start with what that last caller asked me. Where is this likely to go now?
Unfortunately, George, you're 100% correct. I mean, this is a conflict that cannot end until one side or the other has been decisively beaten and is willing to make the kind of compromises that they're not willing to make now. And frankly speaking, given the level of suffering that the Palestinian people have undergone over the past 7 decades, they're not likely to be the side that breaks first. Israel is a fundamentally broken nation morally. It's a nation that, regardless of what you think, I know some people take umbrage at this, but I happen to be somebody who believes that Israel has the right to exist, and that we should respect Israel's right to exist, but not in the way that it exists today. You can't exist on the backs of people that you've enslaved, and they have enslaved the Palestinians. In fact, it's worse than slavery, because slaves at least get to have the pretense of working in the fields, pretending for a moment maybe they're free. The Palestinians, especially those in Gaza, are stuck in this open-air prison, not of their own construct. Israel underwent a fundamental change in its demographics and politics in the 1990s when they opened the doors to the former Soviet Union, and hundreds of thousands of Soviet Jews fled to Israel, altering the balance. When I was in Israel in the 1990s, there was a struggle between right and left, but both agreed that there was a necessity for peace. However imperfect their political solutions might have been, I know for a fact that Yitzhak Rabin was looking for a peaceful outcome, looking for a settlement before he was assassinated by a right-wing Israeli. And now Benjamin Netanyahu has stepped into the gap, and ever since then, Israel has been drifting towards an even more radical right-wing solution. As long as Benjamin Netanyahu and his ilk are in power in Israel, there is no hope for peace, none whatsoever. And you are right, Israel will go into Gaza with a vengeance, and hundreds, if not thousands, of Palestinians will lose their lives. And in the end, some morally conscious nation, and I say that with the greatest, I don't believe it. There's no such thing as a morally conscious nation that keeps their tongue silent now. But some nation, the United States perhaps, will say enough is enough. Even we can't stomach the slaughter that you have perpetrated, and it's time to bring this fighting to a halt. And the cycle will begin all over again until the next time. Now, the only hope for this outcome not to go that way is if Hezbollah gets involved in a major way and breaks the paradigm. And if Hezbollah is backed by Syria and Syria is backed by Iran, and then we will see the strategic defeat of Israel. We may see the end of Benjamin Netanyahu physically or politically, and whatever replaces him in Israel will be somebody who is compelled by this defeat to seek peace in a way that's equitable for the Palestinian people. But until which time Israel is strategically defeated, there's no hope for peace, none whatsoever, because Israel, as it currently exists, can't have peace, because peace requires them to treat the Palestinian people with respect, with dignity. And Israel today is incapable of treating the Palestinian people with the respect and dignity, not only that they deserve, but that they demand. What happened yesterday, as violent and ugly as it was a manifestation of the demand that the Palestinians be treated seriously, with respect. I, like everybody else, I think shudders at the death and destruction that took place. I wish it had never happened. But you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind, and Israel is reaping the whirlwind right now as we speak. It's tragic, but tragically it's necessary.
What do you say, Scott, to those who doubt the scale of the negligence that appears to have been involved in all of this being planned, it clearly was planned. The build up to it must have been long in the making. And yet this most heavily surveyed patch of earth in the world, all this was taking shape and then executed with quite spectacular levels of military success, however ghastly.
Look, there's no doubt that Hamas has pulled off, and this will be studied for years. Again, military professionals have to put aside politics and study military events with a professional eye. And what Hamas did yesterday is one of the most remarkable military feats in modern history. First of all, to be able to plan this without being detected by the Israelis is, as you indicate, almost miraculous. Now, I have an answer as to how this came about. I actually have just written an article. It'll come out in Consortium News later this afternoon that addresses this issue. But I think this, Winston Churchill once famously said that he quipped about the War Office that they are always fighting the last war, never the next war. Israel is guilty of that in my mind. They are fighting 2021, Operation, I forget whatever, they named so many things, Wall Guardian or Guardian on Walls or something like that.
Been so many of them, yeah.
But Israel openly bragged at the end of this conflict, which they claim to have won, and yet Hamas still exists. They said this was the first artificial intelligence war. That you mentioned it. It's the most heavily surveilled piece of terrain in the world. Every 10 minutes, every meter of Gaza is photographed by Israel. And that data, those images go into a giant computer database. They collect every cell phone conversation, every text message, any email messaging. They have total control. They have human spies on the ground. And Israel bragged about this right afterwards in 2022. The first artificial intelligence battle, we had total domination of the information spectrum, and we were able to use artificial intelligence to predict outcomes, meaning that it wasn't a human being now that is telling Israel what to do. It is a computer algorithm put together by Israeli intelligence, and the Israelis bragged about this. And I will say this about Hamas and about the Palestinians and about Hezbollah. They aren't stupid. These are some of the smartest people on the planet, and they are survivors. And as soon as they heard that Israel had turned over the thinking process to a computer, I believe they sat there and they gamed the system. And they sat there and they created a whole bunch of artificial information that lulled the computer into a false sense of complacency. And because the Israelis had yielded their thinking ability to a computer, they went into Yom Kippur mode. And I don't mean this year, I mean 1973, where once again, all the information was there that an attack was going to take place. Hamas said an attack was going to take place. This is not a secret. Hamas has been saying over and over and over again, this is coming. We are going to do this. We will avenge the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So any thinking person, any rational person would have said, we need to prepare for this. But because Israel yielded its thought process to a computer programmed by people who did not respect Hamas, this intelligence failure took place. That's what I firmly believe.
Now, the whole of the south of Israel was, for a time, out with the control of the government in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. The Palestinian militants, the factions, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, many, many groups, some of which I actually hadn't heard of before. They were all running amok. They were attacking settlements and settlers. They were defeating Israeli forces that they found. They were capturing Israeli police stations, military bases, prisons even. Why did it take Israel so long to get on top of the situation, even given the caveats that you've just made about how they missed it coming in the first place?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, we'll never know until the Israelis do an honest to goodness, form a commission to do a politically neutral autopsy on what happened here. But I can speculate, and I just want everybody to understand that that's exactly what's happening right now is speculation. Israel has been a fundamentally broken state in terms of domestic politics for some time now, ever since Bibi Netanyahu returned as prime minister. His corruption followed him, his attempt to shield himself from prosecution by taking over the court system so that he and he alone can appoint judges that are favorable to his position has divided this nation, the nation of Israel, like never before. Prior to the Hamas attack, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets on a regular basis to protest Benjamin Netanyahu. Thousands of Israeli reservists, the very reservists are being called up now, said they will not serve an Israel that has a Bibi Netanyahu who violates the basic fundamentals of law there. So Israel was a divided nation. The military also, I believe, has just taken a unique stance regarding modern warfare. Look, there are many Russians right now who have learned the hard lessons of war over the course of the past 600 plus days in Ukraine, who are looking at the imagery of the Israeli military response, saying these are the most amateurish people we have ever seen in our lives. Their tactics, their approach, the timid nature of these soldiers is shocking. I think the Israeli army has lost the ability to close with and destroy the enemy through firepower and maneuver. They are so casualty averse that they've created a whole unit based upon unique technologies to let robots do the fighting for them. They let computers do the thinking for them. The last thing they want to do is put one of their soldiers on the ground against somebody who is trained and capable of killing them. They're very good at beating up women, beating up children, beating up villagers, beating up old men, old women, but they're not very good at fighting people who stand up and fight back. And let's be clear here, the Hamas people who are fighting right now, these are lightly armed people with what their courage is cannot be doubted, but their skill set is limited. These are people who have not had the advantages of the military training and technology that the Israelis had, and yet they're fighting them still today, as we speak, outside of the Gaza Strip, in Israeli territory. They hold 30% of the territory that they captured on day one, and they are fighting. The Israelis can't beat them yet. They will beat them. There's no doubt about that. But Israel has forgot how to fight. They have forgot because Yom Kippur 1973 was so bloody for them. Their experience in Lebanon was so bloody for them that they said, never again, we won't do that kind of fighting. Unfortunately, when you raise the level of hatred in a captive population, such as the Palestinians in Gaza, and those people decide to rise up, you are going to have to fight. There's a lot of incompetence going on in Israel right now. There's tremendous amount of military incompetence. The people I feel sorry for, to be honest, I mean, I'm just being frank here, are the Israelis who lived in the South. Not because of, there's a political question of should they be there, et cetera, et cetera. But these are people who believe the Israeli government when the Israeli government said, we will keep you safe. You can go to sleep at night. You will be safe. We will be there for you. If anything happens to you, we will come for you. And they were abandoned by their government, abandoned by their military. They're still abandoned to this day. Shame on the Israeli government. Shame on the Israeli military. There should be mass resignations, but this is all done because the men and women who wear the uniform today, who didn't come to the rescue of these Israelis in their time of need, should be evicted from their positions.
If Israel does invade on the ground, and given that there are now a very substantial number, more than there have ever been before, of Israeli prisoners taken in this Al-Aqsa operation, Al-Aqsa flood, there are real problems about a ground invasion that imperils we now know many Americans are amongst those who have been taken prisoner. These prisoners, hostages, will be held in exchange, hoping to exchange them for the 5,000 plus political prisoners in Israeli jails. So a ground invasion is fraught with that difficulty of harming their own people, but also the risk of bringing Hezbollah into the conflict, and thus the possibility of a very big war, two-sided war, indeed. So do you think they are going to go in? And if so, how will that work out?
Israel conducted a major military exercise earlier this year that tested this very scenario. What would happen if an uprising in the West Bank, uprising in Gaza, Hezbollah intervenes in the north, Iran intervenes? What would Israel do? And they did this major exercise, and it turned out that Israel lost. Israel can't win that war. So Bibi Netanyahu knows this. He was the prime minister when this exercise was held. His senior military officers know this. And so I have to believe that they're not suicidal. And now the question they are probably asking themselves is Hezbollah bluffing? Will Hezbollah really commit to this fight? Or is this just a bluff, and should we call Hezbollah's bluff? Because there's a tremendous amount of political pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu now to be seen as doing something decisive to bring this Hamas issue to an end. And that requires a major military move into Gaza, which I will tell you right now, Israel will lose. Will lose. Because the Israeli army can't suffer casualties. Going into urban warfare, if you've learned anything from Mariupol, if you've learned anything from Bakhmut, these horrible names that have come out, and I say horrible because of the death and destruction that took place in the fighting for these places. Gaza will become like that and worse. The Israelis will suffer losses like they can't even imagine, greater than the Yom Kippur War in its totality. And this is politically unacceptable for Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli people. So I can't tell you what they're going to do. What I can say is that if they go into Gaza, they will have to stop their operation almost immediately, because every force there in Gaza will be needed in northern Israel, because when Hezbollah comes in, they will make what Hamas did the other day look like child's play. The entire north will fall. Haifa could be put at risk. Hezbollah will come in a very serious fashion. Their missiles, their rockets are not these bottle rockets launched by the Hamas, and I'm being a little facetious here, but those are children's toys compared to the modern precision-guided missiles that Hezbollah has. Tel Aviv will be destroyed. The Kiryat, in the center of Tel Aviv, where the military headquarters is, will be flattened. The prime minister's residence will be flattened. Israel will be flattened. Its airfields flattened. That's the future of Israel, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. The Iron Dome doesn't work. Their missile defense systems do not work. And then when Hezbollah attacks and shows victory, you think Syria is going to remain silent about the Golan Heights. No, Syria will move on the Golan Heights. They have 2 divisions they brought up to combat readiness as we speak. And if Syria gets engaged, will Iran stand on the sideline? Iran understanding now with Hamas, Hezbollah, and Syria decisively engaged, now is the time to end the Israeli threat once and for all. And Iran will become involved. And now we've seen the strategic defeat of Israel. And this, I think, the Israelis understand.
All of this, Scott, is a symptom, if that's the right word, of the huge changes that are going on in the world, aren't they? That Iran was once a kind of beaten and isolated power, is now no longer isolated and militarily extremely strong, with probably the world's greatest drone industry. The axis of resistance, they call themselves, of Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Hezbollah in Lebanon is a very, very potent crescent indeed. And it's allied with the new great powers, Russia and China, who would not allow any of these places to be destroyed by an American-Israeli coalition. So this is all happening because everybody's emboldened by the new world political situation, aren't they?
Look, there was a day and age where America could put 750,000 to 1 million troops in the Middle East in a matter of weeks and change the outcome of any conflict. That day is long past. Today, we have a military that's a shadow of its former self, incapable of meaningfully projecting power into areas of the world that have been hardened against that very possibility. Iran's ability to sink American ships at a distance has changed the algorithms that are used there. And Iran knows this. America knows this. You're 100% correct. They've become emboldened, but not emboldened based upon irresponsible calculations, emboldened to be the nations they have every right to be. Iran has every right to be a major player in the region because it is a major player in the region, and it will no longer allow the United States and Israel working together with the Gulf Arab states to keep it down. In fact, thanks to China, they've repaired relations with the Saudis, and they're moving in the right direction there. The United States today is confronting its impotence in Europe and in Asia. Right now, I can guarantee you in the Situation Room at the White House, the Pentagon is saying, boss, we can't do it. We can't do it anymore. We're already broke. If this thing blows up in the Middle East, it's game, set, match. We're done as an economy. Because if Iran does get pulled in and then we respond, there goes all the oil production capability in the Middle East. And that's the end of the modern era of humanity, because without that oil, the economy of the world will come screeching to a halt. They know this. And so I think the United States right now is telling Israel, you're going to have a couple days to feel good. Bomb as many buildings, because we never cared about the Palestinian people, George, you know that. Bomb as many buildings as you can. Kill as many people as you want. But then it's over, because we can't allow it to escalate further. And that could be the end of Bibi Netanyahu, because he will be exposed as the fraud, as the liar, as the insecure old man that he is. And hopefully the Israelis will replace him with somebody who will say never again, but not never again the standpoint that Israel is going to become so strong and mighty that they will forever deter violence through fear. Never again, meaning it's time to seek a meaningful peace with the Palestinian people, because that's the only way we emerge from this without more war. A meaningful peace that respects the dignity and the sovereignty of the Palestinian people.